Now, yes, some of you may say, well, properties, whoa, I've got a mortgage. How are you telling me that's not a good investment? Now, that's not what I said. Here's what I've learned in the last 4 years of investing in investment vehicles, but more importantly, 4 years of buying gold and silver bullion. Okay, so let's get straight to the point. It's been over 4 years for me now of heavy investments. That includes precious metals such as gold and silver bullion, investment vehicles like the S&P 500, the FTSE 100, property, and other investment vehicles as well. What have I learned and what have I experienced? Now, some of you may be new to investing and some of you may be experienced investors. So who does this video particularly target? Is it better for new investors or is it more focused on a seasoned investor? Well, personally, I think by watching this video, you're going to get some great information, maybe some tips, maybe some tricks, and maybe some advice that may change your idea or opinion on some investments, or maybe you're just looking for reassurance and a similar thought or mindset process behind similar investments to maybe what you're doing. So let's start off by the word investing and the word asset. What do they mean and why are they so important? Well, for me, I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it had an absolutely fantastic effect on my investment journey, and it really did open my mindset to the financial intellect of his mindset behind Rich Dad and Poor Dad. Now, one big thing that Robert Kiyosaki's book Rich Dad Poor Dad taught me was the actual true meaning of investing and the true meaning of the word asset. Now, assets get thrown around a lot. People like to say they've got this asset and this asset here and there, but they don't really understand what that is. Now, he taught me the column of asset versus liability column. Now, how does that work? Well, it's simple. Are your investments an asset or are they a liability? And the simple way to look at that is a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket, and an asset is something that puts money into your pocket. Now, a very controversial topic of this would be property. Now, I've got a mortgage on my own property. Now, I would not consider that particularly by definition an asset, because technically my own property that I live in takes money out of my pocket on a monthly basis. Whereas if I was to own an investment property, maybe a buy-to-let or a HMO, that would be an investment property, therefore an asset, because it would not be taking money out of my pocket, but it would in fact be giving me passive income and cash flow into my pocket. So essentially, an asset is specifically the definition of something that puts money into your pocket. Now, yes, some of you may say, well, properties, whoa, I've got a mortgage. How are you telling me that's not a good investment? Now, that's not what I said. What I said was your own mortgage, your own property that you live in is not by definition an asset because it's not putting money into your pocket. However, that does not mean that your own property is not a good investment. Clearly, I think it is a good investment, otherwise I wouldn't have my own mortgaged property, would I? So that's a bit of an explanation on the word asset, and an easy way to look at that is, are my investments an asset or are they a liability? Is this expensive car that I've bought, is it an asset? Is it actually going to put money into my pocket? If the answer is no, then it is in the liability column. And if the answer is yes, it is putting money into my pocket, then it becomes an asset. So really important to understand what the definition of asset actually is. And then once you figure that out, you can actually start creating your own column of your liabilities and your assets. And that's going to really help you on your financial journey of figuring out the path you need to take. Now, when we move back to the word investment, of course, is pretty self-explanatory, but it genuinely means investing income, capital into an investment that hopefully would then become an asset. And of course, we know what an asset is. It's something that generates you income. So there are different forms of investing and assets. Of course, there can be technically an asset that isn't going to pay you dividends, and that can still be classed as an asset. But in the nutshell, investing would indicate that you're putting your own capital into something that is going to generate you income or build in wealth and hopefully become a passive income asset. Now, moving on, I've learned in the last 4 years that investing is not for the short term. For me, I'm no spring chicken anymore. When I started investing probably 4 years ago, I was, 24, 25. I felt like I had a lot more time. But now I'm 28 years old, I'm close to 30. I realized that, time moves fast and investments, unfortunately, generically, do not move fast. Everyone wants to get rich quick, including myself, who doesn't? But the realistic nature of investing is that it's not a short-term game, it's a long-term game plan. So bear that in mind when you're investing in precious metals, specifically long-term investments like index funds and property. They're not short-term wealth building devices. They are long-term assets that will generate you income, but it is a gradual process that takes time to build up that capital, that increase in value, and that income that becomes dividends or a passive income. So just bear in mind that generically, despite what's peddled out on social media, realistically, the truth is investing is not a short-term thing. It's usually a long-term plan. Now, I've also learned in the last 4 years a lot about inflation. There's a lot of talk about inflation in the economy, but the true figures are always a little bit misleading and hard to understand. That's what led me on to investing in precious metals. I love gold and silver bullion as a tangible asset for the reasons that I own it specifically. It's in my possession and I know exactly where and what to do with it. But not only that, it's probably, in my opinion, referring to gold more specifically, the best wealth preservation device to hedge against inflation. So I have to say that probably the best investment that I ever discovered was the first one, being precious metals. And that is so important in protecting your wealth. It's great saving capital, working very hard at your day job or your business or your self-employed business and generating savings. But if you're just sticking it into cash under your mattress or in a bank account that's gaining next to no interest, the chance and truth of it is it's actually losing out to inflation. So the buying power of that is becoming much less. So it's very important to understand what inflation is about and how to counteract that by putting it into the correct investment, specifically in something probably like commodities or precious metals. Now, something else I've learned throughout my years of investing and taking money out, putting money in, is that prices move up, they move down, they move sideways. And it can be quite daunting when you're spending £500 on a quarter ounce gold Britannia, or even 17, 18, 19, £2,000 on a 1 ounce gold Britannia, or maybe you're investing 10 grand into the S&P 500, you can get quite emotionally involved in the fact of price movements. Now, it's really important in my experience to try and keep emotions out of investing. This way, it's going to lead you to protect your investment by not making unnecessary sales or buys in the market. You need to invest on a dollar cost averaging basis on a regular period to get the best value for money, and you need to try and ignore the fact that there are constant price movements, whether they're up, whether they're down, or whether they're sideways. It's really important to try and keep emotions out of investing. Now, historically, something that I'm very proud to have invested in, as I've said, is gold bullion. The reason for that is it's performed historically so well. Over the last 20 years, it's increased by over 600%, and gold's been around for over 4,000 years. When we look to silver, silver is a bit of a slow mover, but it has great upside potential. So for me, I've learned that diversification is key. Yes, they're both precious metals, they're a commodity, but they are two separate investments that I consider a separate entity. Gold is my wealth preservation device, my safety net for the backbone of my investment portfolio, and silver's a little bit of a bet. It's a little bit of a hedge against inflation. It's a little bit of a punt that silver could potentially be slightly undervalued, and it may be more desired in the future because of its current uses and demand. So diversification is key, whether it's gold, silver, index funds, property, cryptocurrency, stocks and shares, ISAs, whatever it is. If you can spread out your investments across multiple sectors around the globe, around different investment vehicles, you're not only going to increase your potential chances of yielding greater results, you're also going to lower that chance of having higher risks. Again, this comes back to being a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. My strategy is low risk, long-term plan, and so far it's proving to be fantastic for me, and I honestly can't say I've had any major scares in any of my investment vehicles so far. Now, all of this is extremely important. Of course it is. It's a finance channel. It's an investment channel. It's my passion. I love building wealth. I love increasing my financial knowledge. And of course, the more wealth I create, the better my investments do, the happier I am. Who isn't? The more income you have, the better your life can be. But something very important to touch on at the very end of this video is that more importantly than anything else, health is your wealth. If you've got health, everything else is a bonus. So although it may be exciting and a little bit addictive to start investing, especially once you get the bug and you start learning more about it, just remember that money isn't everything, health is everything, and after that, everything else is a bonus. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. This has been an episode on 4 years of buying gold and silver bullion and what I've learned regarding all of my investments throughout nearly the last 5 years. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a great one to film, and I look forward to seeing you all in the very next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.